On this week's show, we'll be reviewing the easy win against Villa. We'll ask ourselves how we'd feel if Poch went to United. We'll examine the underlying implications of Jose's new haircut. We'll preview our games against RB Leipzig and Chelsea. Oh, and we'll have a good old chuckle about Man City. This is the Varside Spurs podcast, and we're live. So, welcome to the Varside Spurs podcast. We're coming to you live today from the Crypt Studios. We've gone all posh and professional. I'm here with Brian Luff. So we are in fashionable bohemian Crouch End. Brian, how are you doing?
We are, and we're sitting on a big leather sofa,
Yeah.
which is the most luxurious this podcast has ever been. We're going out in Dolby Surround Sound 5.1.
Of course we are. And this is a studio from which people like Annie Lennox have recorded. We've had Rita Ora here.
Madness.
Who?
Madness.
Madness.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of height that we've now aspired to. Coming all the way from lugubrious Luton, as ever, we have Wazza Steve Worrell. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, not bad at all.
Good. Well, you're see, when you're smiling, it changes everything. The whole tenor of this podcast goes up 5 notches.
More than a tenner, more about 20.
Whatever. And from the hood in Haywards Heath, we've got Andy Creed. Andy, how are you, mate?
Yeah, all good, mate.
Excellent.
Really good.
Good. Well, we're going to get cracking. Hopefully we've got a few of our regular listeners and perhaps some new ones coming to us this week as we go out live from the Crypt. Let's have a little chat about the Villa match. Now, as I said in the intro, very straightforward, easy victory for us. Had we gone in 4-0 down at half-time, Steve, we probably couldn't have complained. But then on the other hand, had we not missed 47 good chances, we might have won that game comfortably. What was your reading of the game?
Well, it's quite difficult for me, really, because I watched the first part of the game where I was, and then I had to make my way home. So I listened to the game, and I had to rely on that guy that does BBC 5 Live, who's notoriously miserable about all things Spurs anyway. So you kind of don't know if you're going to get a realistic impression of what actually happened. Suffice to say, as soon as I got in the car, we scored. So I was quite happy. I stayed in the car. I got home. I stayed in the car until the end. My wife got out of the car, and I told her I'd see her after the 7 minutes that were remaining plus injury time.
Yeah.
And we managed to score the winner in that period of time. So, I'll take the result.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
Well, I think there's a lesson there, which is when Spurs are playing, can you just sit in your car?
I'd love to. I'd love to.
Clearly.
Mostly.
Well, all right. Well, Andy, it was a strange old game, really, wasn't it? The Villa came at us pretty hard and fast. Our defence looked, to call it creaky is to overstate the case or understate the case. We looked like conceding virtually every time they attacked. On the other hand, we had a lot of breaks that should have resulted in goals for people like Dele and Sonny. Just wanted to ask you specifically about Sonny, who seems to have lost the capacity to look up.
Yeah, well, I think probably maybe Mora's rubbing off on Sonny, because Mora's very much like that, head down, hardly ever sees a pass. And I'm not sure whether Sonny and Mora actually like playing that well together. I'm not sure about that. And Bergwijn seems a little bit like that as well. So I just think they've got to spend a bit more time playing together.
Yeah.
And defensively, well, Toby was totally skinned by Grealish, wasn't he, on the left wing? And I thought our best defender actually was probably Aurier. I know he had a bit of a tough start with Grealish, but he kept him quiet for most of the game. And Davis was pretty good considering it was his first game back. So, yeah.
And I thought Davis at times looked like he was treading water, but that, I guess, is, here's a guy who's been out for a long time, and, you can't expect him to be in tip-top shape coming back like that. And I thought he did okay. Toby said something afterwards, didn't he, Brian? I don't know if you saw that, Toby talking afterwards about feeling heavy-legged. He didn't feel like he quite had the spring. I mean, he was nowhere near that header, was he? When they went?
No, he did say he was feeling heavy-legged, and I wasn't quite sure exactly what he meant by that. I mean, is he saying that he doesn't think he's fit enough to be playing? I mean, that's basically what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I'd be interested to know some stats about players that have scored at both ends for Spurs.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to Google that and see how many Spurs players have successfully scored at both ends of the field.
In the same match?
Yeah, in the same match. But a fantastic goal. I mean, Kane could not have taken that goal any better. The way he turned and hit it virtually behind him was one of the goals of the season for me, and that coming from a centre-back.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I remember Toby saying many years ago that, people saying, what a great defender he was. And he said, he thinks of himself as a footballer first, and where he plays after that is kind of secondary. In other words, you need to be able to play everywhere. And here's a guy who scored a goal on the turn, on the half volley, worthy of Harry. I thought, my first impression was, oh, shit, that's Dyer trying something stupid. And then of course you thought that's gone behind. Where's that gone? And it was in. It was an extraordinary goal. We saw Grealish flying past some of our players with relative ease, and that was distressing. And then, of course, we get the usual business of people tweeting saying, why the fuck didn't we buy Grealish? And as far as I understand it, there was a kind of a fee virtually agreed, and then new owners came into Aston Villa and said, you're not having him. Or certainly not at that price.
That's what I've heard, and I've heard that from Villa fans. So it appears to be common knowledge. Although there's stuff going around on Twitter that says that's not the situation at all. It was all about Levy offered a dime bar and a double decker, and they didn't like the offer.
Can't believe they offered that much. Why didn't they take it? That's what I'm asking.
Exactly.
Listen, if it had been a Karamak, if it had been a Karamak,
exactly.
It would have been all over, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
What was it? No minutes on the pitch for Ndombele, which begs the question, is he saving him for Leipzig? And likewise, Lo Celso came on fairly late in the game, and I wouldn't say he changed the game, but he certainly brought some composure on the ball, and his passing is beautiful. Let's look at Ndombele, because we talked about him last week, and some discussion. Let's just sell him. There's one particular tweeter who talks about, get rid of him. He's taking the piss. He's a disgrace. And I'm like, what's the matter with you? He's injured. Do you see him as a likely starter against Leipzig?
I'd like to think so. We've spoke about him quite a few times in terms of his ability, and we know what he brings. There's been a lot of talk about his weight, the usual sort of bollocks, to be fair. And I mean, one of our regular listeners posed the question, just for the sake of posing the question, whether we should cash in on Ndombele at the end of the season and try and go and get Jack Grealish, as a serious question. Now, I don't know. I mean, obviously Grealish is actually performing at a higher level at the moment. He's consistent. He's in the team. He's benefiting from a run of games. But Ndombele is new to the league, so he will, over a period of time, get better and adjust. So, yeah, I'd like to see him play on Wednesday. I'd like to see him have a good contribution. We've got a lot. We haven't seen the best of him, and he's got a lot to offer.
Yeah, he has indeed. We'll come to the Leipzig match a little bit later on. Clearly, that is going to be tough, and of course, we follow that up against Chelsea at the weekend. Let's just stick with that performance against Villa for the second. Brian, there were worrying signs at the back, but nothing that we haven't seen before. And oddly, against Villa, who are, let's face it, not top notch. Where are they? Third, fourth from the bottom or something. We look vulnerable all the time. And when at 2-2, you thought, well, this could go either way, even though I thought we were making more chances. And yet against City, who are much more potent, I didn't feel as though they made any more chances than Villa. In fact, I thought we were better against them. And I'm going to say one word to you: Tanganga.
Tanganga, yeah. I've been thinking about the general strategy seems to be at the moment that let's just try and outscore the other team.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we know that we are a bit weak at the back at the moment for some unknown reason, and Jose seems to think, okay, we're going to let in 2, but we're going to score 3, and Spurs are starting to look like that kind of team.
Yeah.
They back themselves. They've got such a strong, even without Kane, with such a strong attacking force at the front that we think we can outscore anybody. And that's how we're getting away with it. Yeah. And I just wonder whether that isn't actually the overriding philosophy at the moment, which is let's just outscore the opposition.
Andy, this does seem very counter Jose, doesn't it? I mean, this is not what we expect. We expect to be very tight at the back, score a goal and sit on it and win the game 1-0. And yet here we are looking wide open, but quite potent going forward because we've got great pace going forward.
Yeah, I thought we were really excited going forward. One of the things I think about what's happening with Jose, though, is he's improving us incrementally. So although we are conceding still, you know, the goals that we conceded yesterday, one was a set piece. That could have been conceded against anybody, to be fair.
Yeah.
And the other one was a fluky own goal. That was just Toby going to sleep a little bit. But generally, defensively, I think we're looking a lot more solid. We've got more shape to ourselves. And I do think the Mourinho way of playing, you can see it happening. It's just that I just feel the actual midfield part isn't quite right yet.
Yeah.
It isn't gelling properly, and we haven't got the proper defensive midfielder in there because I just don't think Dyer's up to it, really. Well, not at the moment, anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe just needs to take time to get back into it. But yes, attacking wise, I like it. I actually prefer that style of play to, dare I say it, the Pochettino over possession play that just bores the hell out of me. I prefer that.
Certainly more direct, aren't we? More direct under Jose. We're clearing, the keeper is farting about, trying to pass it 2 inches left and right, and then it ends up either in our
But I don't think we're just lumping it up there. I've heard lots of people say that it's just being lumped up to Moura. I don't think we are doing that.
No.
There are on occasions where we do fire it forward because we're just clearing our lines.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a bit like the third goal. That was a pass by Sanchez. The Villa defender Engels, he missed totally, but it wasn't just a lump. It was actually just passed up to that area of the pitch.
Yeah.
And
Andy mentioned Dyer there, and I wanted to talk about Dyer, or rather, with your expert eye, talk to us about Dyer. I thought he had a tough time yesterday. The other person I thought you might want to comment on is Lloris, and when I saw the first goal, I thought, why didn't he come? And then in the second goal, I thought, why is he standing on his line 3 yards from goal, where he, with his hands and a jump, he can get higher than that defender? And he just watched that go in. So 2 areas that concerned me yesterday, and I'm a big fan of both of those players at their best, but are they at their best, and are we going to be thinking about replacing them?
So with Dyer, from what I saw initially, he started off quite poorly, but he seemed to get better. And there were people on Twitter that sort of agreed with that. You get the usual people that are actually not actually really watching the game, have an agenda, and don't actually take the evidence what they see ahead of them. So they'll just say, well, Dyer was shit because it's Dyer. Whereas I think it's Alan Green, actually, so the commentator, and he even said, when he came off, actually, he thought he'd had a reasonable game, all things considered. He might have started poorly, but he grew into the game. Lloris, on the other hand, from what I saw, was and when I caught up with the highlights of the second goal,